Hello, friends. This is Seth Itzkan of Soil for Climate. I hope you are all doing wonderfully well, and thank you so much for joining this webinar. It is titled Hooves of Hope, Pastoralism as a Climate and Livelihoods Solution. And we are delighted today with our panel, a very esteemed panel, and we will be getting to them immediately. We're different types of sectors of speakers, and we will be looking for your comments afterwards. Our speakers today include Dr. Badi Besbes. He is the Chief of Sustainable Animal Production, Feed and Genetics Branch of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Dr. Siboniso Moyo is the Deputy Director General of Research Partnerships and Impact for the International Livestock Research Institute. Dr. Severino Critelli on the Commission of Nomadic Peoples and the editor of the Nomadic Peoples Journal. And I know Dr. Critelli because we are both on the Pastoralism and Climate Change Working Group of the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. Mr. Dalmas Tiampati, the founder of the Masai Center of Regenerative Pastoralism in Kenya. Mr. Ndinga Lizer Okeyaroi is the founder and director of the Tanzania Eco Warriors Initiative. Dr. Lee Winowicki is the global research leader, soil and land health at World Agroforestry, and the co-lead of the Coalition of Action for Soil Health. And Dr. Jason Roundtree is the C.S. Mott Professor of Sustainable Agriculture and the Director of the Center for Regenerative Agriculture at Michigan State University. Now I would like to pass it over to Dr. Badi Besbes of the UN FAO for opening remarks. Dr. Besbes, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and distinguished participants, dear colleagues, dear partners and pastoralists, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to speak at Hooves of Hope, an Earth Day event that brings together science, policy, and pastoral communities from around the world. On behalf of FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and on behalf of the Secretariat of the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, I would like to warmly thank the Coalition of Action for Soil Health and all partners for organizing this very timely dialogue. Earth Day reminds us that caring for our planet goes hand in hand with caring for people. Nowhere is this more evident than the words rangeland. Rangelands cover more than half of the global surface, land surface, encompass an extraordinary diversity of landscape and sustain the livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people. Yet, rangeland remains among the most undervalued and underinvested ecosystems. For millennia, pastoralists have managed this landscape through mobility and deep ecological knowledge, using land where other forms of agriculture are difficult or simply impossible. Through their livestock, pastoralists transform grass into nutritious food, providing quality meat and dairy products for millions of people. And in a world searching for solutions to environmental threats, to biodiversity loss, and soil and land degradation, pastoralists are not part of the problem, they are part of the solution. And yet, rangeland and pastoralism are undergoing pressure. Rangelands are being converted into cropland, mining areas, urban zones, or fragmented by poorly adapted land use approaches. Extreme weather events are leading to degradation of rangeland health, soil health, and drying of vital water points. As environmental threats rise, economic insecurity deepens, and young people leave rural areas. If this trend continues, we risk losing not only food security, but also invaluable indigenous and traditional knowledge, and ultimately the long-term viability of rangeland systems themselves. How we support pastoral communities today will shape our food systems and landscapes for generations to come. The International Year of Rangeland and Pastoralist is a turning point. It's a moment to listen to pastoralist voices, to value their knowledge and lived experience, and to translate this into better policies, investment, and stronger institutions. FAO is honored to coordinate this international year together with our partners. We take this responsibility with a great enthusiasm and with a clear goal to ensure that the impact of this year extends well beyond 2026 through lasting policy change, investment, and concrete action on the ground. This is why today we come together to highlight a critical message. Soil health, rangeland management, and pastoral livelihoods are deeply interconnected and must be addressed together. Healthy soil underpins productive rangelands. Productive rangelands depend on appropriate grazing management and mobility, and both rely on pastoral communities having the enabling condition they need to manage landscape sustainably. Distinguished participants, let me conclude with 3 brief messages. First, pastoralism should be understood as an adaptive system shaped by generations of experience in highly variable environments. Second, rangelands deserve greater attention and investment, not as a marginal space, but as a central component of resilient food systems and rural economies. And third, progress will depend on dialogue, on partnership, and practical solutions that bridge science, policy, and practices. FAO looks forward to working with all partners to support the rangeland and pastoralists toward better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life for all, leaving no one behind. I wish you a productive and inspiring discussion. Thank you very much.
Dr. Besbes, thank you. It's an honor to have you here today presenting on behalf of the UN FAO, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and the UN FAO in this important capacity. I wish to now hand the baton to Dr. Siboniso Moyo. She is the Deputy Director General of Research Partnerships and Impact for the International Livestock Research Institute based in Nairobi. Dr. Moyo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting ILRI this afternoon to participate in this important webinar on pastoralism as soil, climate, and livelihood solution, and for the opportunity to give these remarks, especially noting this diversity of perspectives that will be tabled this afternoon. As I begin, I wish to note, as my colleague from FAO, Buddy, mentioned, ecologically speaking, over 50% of the world's terrestrial surface is rangelands. Pastoralism is one of humanity's oldest and most resilient livelihood systems, and pastoralists have shaped rangelands, they've sustained the biodiversity and fed communities for millennia. Today, pastoral systems support more than 250 million people in Africa, and Africa's pastoralist livestock herders generate more than sometimes 75% of the continent's milk and more than half of its meat. So it is an amazing resource. Therefore, this afternoon, I wish to take this opportunity to explore three dimensions or three pillars of what pastoralism offers by drawing on some of the research from the International Livestock Research Institute, ILRI, together with its partners to show what this looks like in practice. Pillar number one, pastoralism as a soil health solution. Pastoralists promote rangeland health by improving soil fertility and managing fires and accelerating nutrient cycling. Environmental stewardship provided by the world's pastoral peoples also helps restore degraded lands while promoting the biodiversity of plants, animals, and soil organisms. Rotational grazing also offers or gives plants and soils time to rest and regenerate, preventing the degradation that sometimes comes from sedentary or fixed grazing. Therefore, we put before you that well-managed pastoralism also keeps bush encroachment in check, maintains vegetation cover, and reduces erosion. ILRI has been at the forefront of research on how collaborative rangeland governance can reverse land degradation. Through some of our work in East and West Africa, ILRI has demonstrated together with our partners that through participatory rangelands management, pastoralists can gain secure tenure and the right to manage movement of their animals. Participatory rangeland management, PRIM, has stimulated communities to invest in sustainable land management practices through better organized grazing and rangeland rehabilitation. Therefore, participating communities reported that after the pilot stage, the condition of their rangelands had improved because of these activities, such as reseeding pasture, better grazing management, tree planting, and water conservation. Manure is a valuable source of nutrients, organic matter, and when well managed, it is a tool for building soil fertility and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Here at ILRI, together with our partners, we have an environmental center or Mazingira Center, which has had manure management as a central focus for its research on pastoral and agro-pastoral subsystems in sub-Saharan Africa. So again, we are continuing to generate data in this aspect. Pillar number two is looking at pastoralism as a climate solution. I know my colleagues will cover this in detail, but from the livestock systems and from some of our work, I wanted to highlight that all livestock systems are portrayed as a climate problem, but the reality is different in certain places. In Africa, livestock systems are diverse, and for the most part of the continent, they are low input systems. In addition, most emissions come from industrial systems that maybe we see in other parts of the world. The African continent is responsible for under 4% of historic global emissions. Therefore, pastoral systems are for the most part using natural forage, not much cultivated feed crops, no synthetic fertilizers, no heavy machinery. Evidence suggests that well-managed pastoral systems can achieve a near neutral carbon balance because they mimic the natural cycles of wild herbivores rather than adding new emissions to the atmosphere. ILRI has been working with pastoral communities and partners to strengthen pastoralist resilience and anticipatory action. ILRI has invested heavily in tools that help pastoralists anticipate and manage climate shocks before they become a crisis. Here, I would like to highlight two examples. One of them is the flagship activity on index-based livestock insurance program, which provides pastoralists with insurance against drought-induced losses. This is indexed to satellite measurement of vegetation cover rather than waiting for disaster and then responding. Therefore, IPLI allows pastoralists, their governments, and donors to act in advance. Another example is with the Jamil Observatory, a partnership between ILRI and Edinburgh University, which has revealed that pastoralist knowledge is important and is more sophisticated than sometimes is recognized. So pastoralist communities in northern Kenya, for example, they actively engage with and navigate both traditional and scientific knowledge system. So the observatory advocates for knowledge pluralism rather than simply integrating local knowledge into scientific frameworks. My last pillar, pillar number 3, is on pastoralism as a livelihood solution. We know that pastoralist systems are not traditional systems, but rather one of the most productive food systems in Africa, as I have said. And in some countries, pastoralism contributes up to 40% of agricultural gross domestic product and provides up to 75% of the milk and meat, as I alluded to earlier. So pastoral health also function as saving accounts, insurance policies, social capital. So central to this investment must be a commitment to building on what pastoralists already have, locally adapted, resilient livestock breeds shaped by centuries of selection under demanding conditions. And also we are happy to, even through our website, to share that we're doing a lot of work in this area in the small ruminant production systems here in Kenya and in West Africa. The research has shown that indigenous and crossbred genotypes were each valued differently depending on the farming system and market context. But what we have learned from our research is that genetic improvement program must prioritize conservation and utilization of these indigenous locally adapted breeds like the red Maasai, rather than introducing all the time exotics that might not be well adapted to this environment. So in closing, Chair, I just want to emphasize again the 3 pillars that pastoralism, in short, is not a problem. It is a portfolio of solutions that for soils, for climate, for livelihoods, and for biodiversity. So I look forward this afternoon to learn more on these and other components from the great team of panelists that is coming after me. Again, I thank you.
Dr. Moyo, and we thank you so much for participating. It's an honor to have the International Livestock Research Institute being part of this important conversation. Thank you. And I just want to put a general framing out there for those who have joined since we started, and in case I didn't get into it in enough detail at the beginning, this is the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists as declared by the United Nations in 2021, actually. So it's been 5 years in the making. And the FAO is the sort of lead organization for that. And then there's the Global Alliance of Rangelands and Pastoralists, which is the administrative body for that. And within that, there are various working groups, and one is on climate change. And so I'm part of that climate change working group. And our next speaker is also, and he will talk to you about pastoralism in that context. And I just want to give you some more of the lay of the program. After him will be 2 Maasai herder and community elders from the Kenya and Tanzania side of the border, and I've had the pleasure of working with them. And then after them, sort of the hardcore science, the soil and rangeland science, we'll be hearing from Dr. Lee Winowicki on doing rangeland soil science in the Kenya, East Africa, and then we'll be hearing from Dr. Jason Roundtree doing soil science in a rangeland grazing context from the United States, and that we should still have plenty of time afterwards for discussion. So policy, what you just heard from Dr. Bespes and Dr. Moyo, practice, what you'll hear from the Maasai herders in Kenya and Tanzania in terms of their real life experience, and then the science and the conclusions that we're getting from scientific investigation. So we need all of that: science, policy, and practice, and we will cover all of that today. So now, without further ado, let me hand it over to Dr. Severino Critelli. He is on the Commission of Nomadic Peoples, the International Union of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences. He's the editor of the Nomadic Peoples Journal, and I know him through the Pastoralism and Climate Change Working Group and within the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. So, Dr. Critelli, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope can you confirm you see my screen? Yes,
yes,
great.
I confirm it is streaming.
Perfect. So, hello everybody. Today I would like to talk about pastoralism as a model of sustainable climate adaptation and why we may have more to learn from it than it is usually recognized. Pastoralism tries for centuries, as you have heard, in fact millennia, and on all continents except Antarctica, making use of some of the most dynamic environments like savanna, tundra, mountains, where climate variability is high and drives vegetation growth in often unpredictable patterns. So from the point of view of modernization and development, these vagaries of climate, this variability, have been seen mainly as a problem to overcome. Industrial agriculture has been organized on the principle of separating nature from production, nature from the uncertainty of natural conditions. Yeah, and instead of organizing, instead of introducing stability and control, pastoral systems took a different path. They thrived through ecological integration, working with nature, benefiting from climate variability while managing its risks. As we will see, pastoralism is powered by variability, a bit like a sailing boat is powered by winds, to use a metaphor. That is why pastoralism matters precisely in our time of climate change, where climate variability has become the new normal also outside the rangelands. When pastoral systems are allowed to operate according to their own logic, their agroecological value is evident. The central strategy of pastoralism ecological integration is mobility, as we have heard. It is the combination of climate variability and herd mobility that opens up grazing opportunities. Climate variability means that vegetation on the rangelands does not grow all at once over large regions. Instead, it grows distributed irregularly over time and space. At the plant level, nutrients are first stored and then used for reproduction. In this cycle, forage quality peaks in the grass only for a week or two. By starting these cycles of vegetation growth in different places at different times, climate variability triggers brief concentrations of nutrients sequentially. For mobile herds, this uneven pattern is what opens up a continuous sequence of grazing opportunities, resulting in a relatively stable access to nutrient-picking forage over time. In other words, thanks to climate variability and mobility, pastoralists can keep their animals feeding on nutrient-picking forage for much longer than it would be possible in any one location they visit, so for months rather than days. On the other hand, development policies and interventions have been aimed at transforming pastoralism on the basis of a model that assumes stability and frames variability as an obstacle. This is still happening. As a consequence, today, pastoralism exists along a spectrum. While some systems continue to operate largely according to their agroecological nature, others have been more deeply affected, especially by the introduction of obstacles to mobility. For example, rangeland fragmentation, fixed infrastructure and services that keep people in settlements, restricted borders, insecurity, weakened customary institutions, and of course, policies of sedentarizations that peaked in the 50s and 60s, but then they are coming back now and they continue. When the functional relationship between mobility and climate variability is undermined, pastoralists lose the very strategy that makes their systems productive, sustainable, and resilient. Pastoralists are often portrayed as helpless victims of climate change. Logically, if we assume that climate variability is a problem, then more variability means a bigger problem. Some say too big a problem. But for pastoralism, climate variability is their ecological niche. Therefore, a sound logic needs to start from this different premise. Framing climate change as a total rupture then frames pastoralists' adaptive capacity as irrelevant, just when it is most needed. So climate-related risk is shifting for pastoralists too, as for us all, of course. But pastoralism is not disoriented by climate change in the same way as the agricultural systems that depend on fixed calendars and assumptions of stability. When pastoralists do suffer from the biophysical manifestations of climate change, the first question we need to ask is not how to introduce stability, but what is getting in the way of the functional relationship between pastoralism and variability. Investing in this functional relationship is smart climate policy. It supports biodiversity, soil health, carbon cycling, and resilience, as we have heard. One of the biggest misunderstandings in climate policy today is the idea that all greenhouse gas emissions from human societies are the same, regardless of their ecological context and their roles within the Earth system. Yet what makes these emissions significant in the face of climate change is precisely their context. It is the relationship between carbon cycles, Earth systems, and the social world we build around them. So this relationship is fundamentally different in the case of methane emissions from pastoral livestock than in the case of emissions produced by burning fossil fuels. Treating them as commensurable, as in all cases of offsetting schemes, for example, collapses the crucial distinction between a living cycle and a one-way geological displacement. Climate finance for our future should support pastoralists directly, not as offset providers, but for their ability to practice pastoralism, because pastoralism already sustains resilient and ecologically integrated systems. This means supporting mobility, protecting land rights, and strengthening customary institutions. It also means investing in pastoralist women and youth, recognizing them as right holders and key actors in the processes that make pastoralism both productive and sustainable. So I would like to end with one simple message, and that is the pastoralism, in many ways, is already a system for the future. In a world of increasing climate uncertainty, we need food systems that are at home with climate variability. Indeed, systems organized around using climate variability, and pastoralism offers exactly that. That is why the issue is not whether pastoralists can adapt to climate change or not. If any food system can, pastoralists certainly can. The issue that feels more urgent to me today is whether climate policy can adapt to recognize the present and future value of rangeland pastoralism systems. Promoting new agroecological practices is important, but even more important is recognizing and supporting agroecological practices that are already there, practices that already exist, and certainly one of them is pastoralism. Thanks.
Dr. Critelli, thank you so much for that presentation, advocating on behalf of pastoralism as an adaptive climate solution and highlighting the role of mobility as in fact an essential asset. So thank you. We hear you and we appreciate it. I just also want to remind our listeners or participants that today is Earth Day, and so we chose this event to be today to acknowledge Earth Day, and also April is sort of the climate theme month within the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. And we are intentionally trying to bring together themes and bodies of stakeholders who might not normally have been together, in the same place. So thank you all for being here. There are 100 participants, by the way, so that is quite good. Now we will get to Mr. Dalmas Tiampati and Mr. Ndinga Lizer Orikaroe of the Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania, and I will give a few introductory remarks because we're working together on a group project, and then after that we will hear from the scientists. We'll get into some of the hardcore soil and rangeland science regarding soil improvements from proper grazing management. So let me quickly do a share for you here. And our schedule is good. We're on time. Please put your questions in the question and answer feature of your Zoom app, or if you're through the web, there is a Q&A, so put it there. There is the chat area, and we see a lot of you are chatting, which is great. But if you have a specific question, try to put it within the Q&A feature there. Okay, so let me do this share. Okay, and I will just speak to this very quickly, and then I will hand it over. So, yes, very good. Okay, let me confirm that you can see. Okay, yes. So we are doing this project, which in Maasai is called Enkap Osaligi. It translates to English as Promised Land. And basically, regenerative grazing is sort of the core part of it, but it fuels all these other sectors which are so important: food security, water, soil, climate, environment, and equity, or access to markets. Just sort of in English version of it, regenerative grazing on Maasai lands, grassland restoration within a holistic context, meeting social, environmental, and economic aspirations for pastoral communities in East Africa. And so we see this as being a landmark project on Maasai lands across both Kenya and Tanzania, potentially impacting 2 million people with approximately 1 million cows, over 10 million hectares. And specifically, to get started, there are 2 divisions. There's the Nkorika division, few-hour drive from Nairobi on the Kenya side, and then the Emborit division, a few-hour drive from Arusha on the Tanzania side. In total, about 164,000 hectares, impacting approximately 20,000 people and involving approximately 30,000 cows. And then if you're sort of like a geek like me, and you follow precipitation, you have to see that this is sort of the ideal area in terms of rain. 1,000 millimeters a year is sort of ideal for rangeland savanna. type of ecosystem, as opposed to being, more drier or more wetter. That's sort of like the ideal range. And Kenya, southern Kenya, northern Tanzania are right smack in that sort of sweet spot in terms of rain. And then, of course, the objectives: environmental, economic, and social, rangeland recovery, inclusive markets, and resilient livelihoods. And then the components will be holistic management training, herd building, and land leasing, rancher cooperatives and market access, and ecological outcome verification. And the directors will be Dalmas Chiampati in Kenya and Ndinga Lizer or IYRP in Tanzania. And now I want to hand the floor. Okay, our charge, we won't get into all the language here. We just don't have time, but I like the phrase "to heal the skin of the earth" and the many benefits that come as a result of that, and then the social, economic, and environmental objectives, and then of course the challenges, which many of us are aware of, and we'll get into these in more detail. But this, just very briefly, want to touch at the high level themes, and then the solutions: holistic grazing management, training, outreach. So these are pictures which I've took myself in many cases of the work we have already done. And then this is Ndinga in Tanzania doing the community outreach here. This was community outreach that we did on the Kenya side. And water points, of course, are going to be essential. We didn't even have the money for a borehole, so we just did an earth dam. It extended the drinking for a few months, but it was something anyway. Better animal enclosures, genetics, of course, and breeding, herder cooperatives for market access. That's Dalmas in the middle there, speaking to his colleagues. So, a better, more robust market access to really get economic opportunities to the growing meat industry in Kenya and in all of East Africa. It's just going to grow. And, the question is, can pastoralists be an actual, participant here? So not just subsistence living, but really participating in a way which is, helping their livelihoods while also healing the land, both. It's not at the expense of land exploitation. And then some type of eco-service markets, we don't even want to say yet what it's going to be. So carbon markets is kind of a dirty word. It's been exploited, as you know. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. But we see some sort of eco-service markets being inevitable, and they can be good if they're done within a context that the pastoralists themselves take ownership of. And then, of course, university outreach. This was at the University of Nairobi when Dalmas and I visited, and the young generation is really interested in this. They want something to believe in, and this can be it. And then, of course, bringing modern science to showing the efficacy of the land improvement. And then even ecotourism. If they want to do it, let's do it. Let's do tourism the right way. And now let me hand it over to Dalmas Chiampati. Mr. Chiampati is the founder of the Maasai Center for Regenerative Pastoralism, and has been my colleague since 2017. Dalmas, I will man the slides, but you should be able to just start talking, and the camera should go to you. So Dalmas, if you're there, you can just start.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Dalmas Chiampati from the Maasai Pastoralists of Kajiado County in Kenya, and the founder of the Maasai Center for Regenerative Pastoralism, which is a grassroots community-based initiative to help us address challenges we are facing as a Maasai people. Our center main focus is indigenous knowledge, land restoration, and community resilience. For the Maasai, pastoralism is more than livestock. It is understanding the land. It teaches how to read seasons, respond to drought, and live with ecological uncertainty. In our worldview, land is not simply a resource. It is a memory. It is a responsibility, because we have a responsibility to take care of our land, and it is an identity. We are identified by the land. For us, the Maasai, for example, where I come from, the Idalekuto Maasai, we are identified by that region. So we are called the people of the red soils of Kajiado Central. This matters because pastoralism is often misunderstood as only an economic activity. But in reality, it is a system of knowledge about how to live with uncertainty and ecological change. Today, like many pastoralist communities, we face real challenges that include, as it was mentioned, land fragmentation, climate variability, policy pressure, and the gradual loss of indigenous knowledge system. But we have refused to be defined by these challenges. We are defined by how we respond to them. At the Maasai Center for Regenerative Pastoralism, we are involved in restoring traditional grazing mobility, which has been complicated by land subdivision and sedentary pastoralism. We are applying holistic management, which was introduced to us, and of course we impressed by Seth-Iskand and Savory Institute. We are building village grazing cooperatives. We are just trying to bring families together, because originally people were organized in villages. We find that people who are related were living in one village. For us, a village is 5 kilometers square. So you'll find that people in that village were managing that land as a communal land. We are also developing livestock enterprises such as steer fattening, supporting women-led dairy cooperatives, strengthening intergenerational knowledge systems. Our goal is to restore land by restoring the relationship between people, livestock, and landscapes. So when we ask, can pastoralists be a cornerstone for global climate solutions? I will say the answer is yes. Not because pastoralism is perfect, but because it carries knowledge about adaptation, balance, and living within ecological limits. Knowledge that the world urgently needs today. Pastoralist communities are not only vulnerable to climate change, they can also help to shape a response. Thank you very much.
Let's hear it for modern technology. I started talking and it said unmute yourself. The system told me I was muted. Dalmas, thank you so much for those comments. Let me ask you to just speak for a minute about this next slide. We won't have time to get to all of the slides, but just talk for a minute about this next slide and what it means to you.
This picture has two important people in my life. My late grandfather, who was a renowned livestock keeper and steward of the land in Maasai community, in the Maasai people of Ildaralekoto. And the next picture is my son, who was playing close to where the sheep were resting. So these two people inspire me. I got the knowledge and the desire to do the work I do now because of how I saw what my grandfather was doing. My grandfather was a person who cared for people. He loved his family and his community. He loved cattle. He died in 2022. And among his last words, I remember, he said, "Blessed is he who walks in cattle's hoofs." And
go on, please.
He has always, told us to take care of our cattle and our land, because we'll be able to take care of ourselves and live in dignity. And that's what I'm using to give hope to my children. Thank you.
Dalmas, and thank you so much for sharing those personal thoughts. And that's what this is. It is personal. It gets down to real people and real lives and the next generation. We won't have time to get to these slides, but I will just go through them very quickly, and then we'll get to our next speaker. These are just, pictures of some of our experience. And you remember the drought. We became a relief organization for a brief bit. We don't want to be a relief organization, but it was necessary. And just some of the experience of the Maasai pastoral people. And we want to see resilient livelihoods continue. Oh, and let me just show this slide a little bit. There's the whole issue of invasive weeds and how to mitigate this. This is when I was grazing with Dalmas, and this was the morning glory, and just using the grazing animals to just trample through it and break the stem as a mitigating force itself, as opposed to using herbicides. Well, you get the point that the cows would have just walked around it, but we sort of gently encouraged them just to walk through it back and forth. And eventually we could even set up a boma there and just have that be the boma. They're not going to eat it, obviously, but they can mitigate its impact. Okay, thank you, that's Dalmas' son. Let me go on now to our next speaker, Ndinga Lizer Arkayaroi. He is the founder of the Tanzania Eco Warriors Initiative and a partner with us in the NCUP Osaligi Maasai Lands Restoration Project. Ndinga, if you're with us, You can just start
Yeah,
talking now. Yes, why don't you just introduce yourself, and I'll advance the slides as we practiced earlier.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we are celebrating our Earth Day. My name is Ndenga Liza from Maasai Pastoral Community of Tanzania. I'm also a founder and director of Tanzania Eco-Warriors Initiatives. It is a non-government organization or non-profit organization registered and working in Tanzania to engage, educate, and empower local communities through regenerative initiatives and sustainability use of natural resources. As I told you that I'm a pastoralist from a pastoralist community, climate change has been a part of our life since I was a young boy because my parents and the elder parents have to move from one season to another, just searching for grasses and water for animals. But as time goes, these resources have become scarce, and that's why I developed a desire to dive myself into climate change as the way that would sustain our livelihood as a pastoral community. So, as a non-profit organization, we work on the area of regenerative grazing and regenerative agriculture. We believe that in managing our rangeland, we have to employ the methods that we ensure the sustainability of this resource and the livelihood of our communities. So through that, we ensure that social, economic, and cultural aspects of the land are there, so as we could live in harmony with nature. But another issue is the issue of climate change and disaster risk reduction. We know that climate change is the cause of most of the disaster that the Maasai and the other pastoral community along East Africa and all over the world is facing. So we do education on the issue of climate change, on mitigation and adaptation through regenerative solutions. But also we do the issue of community empowerment. We have some of the drought that caused a lot of loss to our animals. For example, in 2022, more than 50,000 animals in northern Tanzania just died because of drought. So another issue is to empower these people by giving them education in how to use their resource so as they cannot die. So another issue we do here is restocking of the animal, because if this community depend their animals for the survival, so what can we do to make they come back after shocks? So we restock them by giving some of the animals so that they can continue their way of life. But another issue we do the women and the girls empowerment. We know that climate change is a problem to all communities, but within the community, women and the girls are the most vulnerable because they are responsible for fetching water and searching water as well as firewood. So if the girls are ready and the women are ready for climate, we believe that they can be good champions in the fighting for this. So all this we're doing as an organization is just to empower our local communities, but to sustain our culture amid the changing climate.
Oops, sorry, went the wrong way. So Ndinga, I've forwarded the slide to the livelihood slide. Do you see it?
Yeah. Okay. I can continue. When we speak of the economic contribution of pastoralism in our community, we believe that to Maasai, pastoralism is not just about economic. It is all about the whole system of living, because it is an insurance, it is a food, and it is what we use to pay school fees, medical expenses to our kids. But when climate change hit, pastoralism means that we go back to poverty. But also, we want to speak a little bit about formally informal traders. Although we are pastoralistic keeping these animals, but we don't have access to formal markets. So we just sell our animals by just using the appearance and the color, and not the weight that is acceptable in the international market. So we are trying to look the way on how we could create a market that will be fair and profitable for these communities. So also apart from that, we go beyond non-market values. Apart from non-market value, we have the role of pastoralism on the issue of rangeland and biodiversity. We know that this animal can help much in the whole process of regulating or controlling invasive species. When you go today around the East Africa pastoral area, you find different kind of invasive species. One of these is Parthenium and the Hypomea, known as morning glory. This invasive species can be controlled or managed using these animals. So pastoralism is also a climate solution. Thank you.
And Dinga, thank you very much. And it was interesting to hear you bring up the morning glory, because you saw the slide we showed earlier where Dalmas and I were trying to mitigate the morning glory just with the behavior of the livestock itself. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all the slides. We need to get to our other speakers. But I'm just going to just advance through these literally so you could just see them. You know, we can come back to these at another time. There's obviously challenges, but you know, but there's opportunities too. It's interesting, this slide here in the top left. I'm just noticing this now for the first time. There it is. That's morning glory. These cows, they'll walk right past it and they won't even eat that. And Dinga, just very, very quickly, do you want to make a comment about this slide? Very quickly, then we have to go on.
Okay, thank you, Seth, and the participant. These are the pictures from my community. This is 2022 and 2023 when we lost a lot of animals. The other picture down here, you see the kids are crying because the animals almost to die. But also you see how we are struggling to get water during the drought period. We go to dig the ground, feeds just to get water. So when we speak that pastoralism, all pastoralists are more vulnerable, you see that it is not all about the rangeland, it's also about a resource like water. We lack water and the grasses. So we need together to be together in fighting for climate change. So we need to empower these people. Wherever you see this story, these are the real story from the field. We are the one who observe climate change and the one who are living climate change every time. So this is the reality, and we will share more later. Thank you.
Okay, and Dinga, thank you so much. Again, many more pictures like this and stories to tell, but we need to move on, but we will get back to this at another time. Okay, I'm going to stop this share now and move on to the science part of the presentation. I'm going to go to Dr. Lee Winowicki, is the global research leader for soil and land health at World Agroforestry, and also the co-lead of the Coalition of Action for Soil Health. And Lee is a great hero of mine. I've had the pleasure of knowing her since the UN Food Systems Summit of 2021. So Lee, the floor is yours.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. And I have just really enjoyed all the insights from the diversity of our speakers. So yes, I'm Lee Winowicki, I'm a soil scientist. And today I'm going to talk about advancements in soil and rangeland health monitoring alongside my co-authors. So to get us started, probably no surprise to this community, but we did a review of 6,000 publications aligned with the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And this graph here shows the ecosystems, forests, grasslands, drylands, and on the right-hand side, it talks about where most of the publications were about. So finance, political will, scientific research. The thicker the So only 3% of the publications were from drylands and only 6% were in grasslands. The thicker the line means there's more, the bigger data gap. So I think there's a real obvious need to fill these knowledge and data gaps in rangelands. And these data can be used to prioritize interventions, investments, and policies. So today I'm going to talk about the need for systematic monitoring of rangeland health. This will help us assess the impacts of management, establish robust biophysical baselines, including Seth for any carbon projects, provide consistent protocols to track changes over time, and to really understand what works where and for whom. So today I'm going to talk about the LDSF monitoring framework. So it's called the Land Degradation Surveillance Framework, LDSF. This is a photo of the team in northern Kenya in Kalama. I should have asked our Dalmas to guess where this was from. And it was designed in 2025 to provide a biophysical baseline. And we have now been implementing this for 20 years. So take out your phone and scan the QR code. This is a really cool blog we did on kind of the evolution of the LDSF. Each green dot here is actually a 100 square kilometer LDSF site. So yes, I'm glad our speaker is going to talk about North America because we are focusing on the global tropics, as you can see from the map. So applying a consistent framework across landscapes allows us to really do comparisons and also produce accurate maps of soil health. So we have a soil sampling procedure where we collect soil samples, composite at the plot level. We also do vegetation measurements. So this is a photo of measuring of trees, and I hope you see the elephants in the back. This is Lumo Conservancy in eastern Kenya. We also look at water infiltration. So as our previous speaker said, that these areas are often prone to prolonged drought. So really understanding what happens when water enters the soil. Does it enter the soil or does it run off? And how quickly does it flow through the soil? We also have the rangeland health module where each plot has a transect where we look at different vegetation species. So I don't know if we have grass lovers here, but we can dive into some of the species where we do grass, forb, and woody vegetation along the transects. And a really important component of this is it's also collected using electronic data entry. So these data automatically are uploaded to the global database, which is really aids in data analysis, data management, data storage, data sharing. So what do we do with these data? How can we make sense of these data? Well, one is we can compare soil organic carbon across sites, across management, across restoration. So we collect all of our soil samples using an auger here. And let's look at some graphs. So on the y-axis are a number of sites in East Africa, Uganda, Kenya. Each site was how long? Big, 100 square kilometers. So that's 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. And they all have 160 topsoil samples and 160 subsoil samples. So these box plots show the topsoil carbon and the subsoil carbon. Now, why am I showing box plots on a webinar? It is because they're so telling. So the wider the box plot, the more variability there is. The more narrow the box plot, the less variability. So just looking at this now, as we have for a couple minutes, we can see that sites that have a wider box plot like Mara and Lewa also have higher carbon. The sites that have more narrow box plots like Lokiriaman in Turkana and Mbalambala and the Upper Tana have lower carbon values. And this is also very worrying because when you start to have less variation across 100 square kilometer site, it starts to indicate that we may be approaching some tipping points and some thresholds of degradation. We can also produce maps, so pretty maps, right? Not only are they pretty, they're based on field data, so they're accurate. So this is a ranch in central Kenya, Laikipia. On the left is a map of soil organic carbon. The darker the color, the higher the carbon. We also produce maps of soil erosion. So the yellow and red are hotspots of erosion prevalence. So we can also combine these data to create restoration priority areas. So that's the resulting map. So gray area is a degraded area with semi-low carbon and semi-high erosion, where moderate efforts for restoration would be needed. The red is highly degraded with very low carbon, very high erosion, and it will require more intervention. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Laikipia landscape, here are some photos and a photo of the Lintonia grass species there. So speaking of grasses, why do we think that there is so much carbon in rangelands? It's because of these beautiful roots of diversity and diversity of root architecture that exploit the soil profile and actually provide organic matter to the soil below ground. So in the LDSF, in the rangeland module, we actually look at these grass species. And for those of you who know me, know that I love grasses. I love identifying grasses, and we have many programs engaging youth in monitoring so that this local knowledge, even the names of these grasses, are revitalized across the community. So I'm just giving you an example of two different conservancies here in Laikipia. One has 39 grass species, with the most common species is this Themeta triandra. So Seth, you saw this a lot in the Mara. And then second is the cynodone. This grass on the right, the most common species was Eragrosa superba, which is photographed here, and it doesn't even have the Themeta triandra in the top grass species. So why is this important? When we're designing restoration, we need to consider the right grass for the right place. So in Omalo, the grass species composition is different than in Loisaba. So we are building one of the largest systematic databases of grasses, annual, perennial, and forbs and woody, and really building this database. Does anyone know how many grass species there are in Kenya? There's suspicion that there's several hundred, but how many grass species are commercially available for restoration? 3. So there's a lot we can do in terms of grass nurseries and revitalizing some of these less common species. This is a really cool project we had with the Laikipia Conservancies Association and the Nature Conservancy, where they implemented LDSF clusters, so 10 LDSF plots per cluster across 27 conservancies. That's the map on the upper left. Even if you can't read the graph here in the center, but you see on the y-axis, there's a list of the conservancies. And the value here is the saturated hydraulic conductivity, so infiltration capacity. And just look at the variability across conservancies. At the top, you have Mugia, that had the highest infiltration capacity compared to Old Mysore or Pingwan. So it's really important that we do systematic monitoring so we can make these comparisons. On the bottom right is actually a graph of the conservancies again, but then how many perennial grass species did they have? So very interesting, Solio only had 14 perennial grass species. Mukatan, 44 perennial grass species were recorded in the survey. So just going back to that point of we need to really understand the species composition in order to prioritize and intervene. And I can't leave here without talking about soil biodiversity. So this is an amazing project we have with SLU in Sweden and Restore for More project. And arbuscular mycorrhizal spores are key indicators of soil health. Again, on the x-axis, we have 4 rangeland sites. Those are the names, all the same size. But my goodness, can you see that the Lokiriyama site has the lowest number of AMF spores? Now, who remembers which site had the lowest carbon as well? It's also Lokiriyama in Turkana. So we use AMF spores as an indicator, both in the number of spores, but the diversity. So Felicia Mwangi is doing her publication and her PhD on eDNA, AMF spores, and even soil acoustics in these rangeland systems. I only have 2 more slides, so I just wanted to highlight that luckily there is interest in developing more consistent monitoring frameworks or implementing them like the LDSF. So this is the Stellar project. So Boni is from ILRI, and this project is led by ILRI with IUCN and a number of partners. And our role at eCraft is to develop a rangeland monitoring framework to support the upcoming rangeland standard. So this is very exciting so that we can actually track the impact on KPIs. And again, please scan your QR code here. The Coalition of Action for Soil Health was founded in 2021 at the UN Food Systems Summit. And we have Colleen Knox, the Director of Communication, on the call, and she can put in some links in the chat. And we have a campaign on the IYRP, and we would love to get your contributions, share any of your materials on this website, get your quotes, and shout all about rangelands. And of course, even in our annual report, we had a foreword from youth pastoralists. So we're really doing as much as we can to raise awareness, bring evidence and data to life, and elevate the voices of marginal groups, of youth, of women, of pastoralists, of really the whole community. So with that, my key messages are that there is an urgency to invest in rangeland restoration and soil health. There's a need to fill these knowledge gaps on the impacts of interventions, but we do have the tools to monitor rangeland health, including soil organic carbon. I didn't get a chance to talk about it today, but we have a citizen science tool called the Regreening app that actually has a rangeland module. It's in 7 different languages and 400,000 users. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, and thanks, Seth, for your leadership in this webinar, and happy Earth Day.
Well, Dr. Winowicki, thank you so much for your presentation and for your outstanding work. It really is a great inspiration and a wonderful segue to the work of Dr. Jason Roundtree, who is similarly engaged with soil health science, but from the United States domain. And honestly, if nothing else, getting you two to be more aware of each other is a success in my perspective, because you're the 2 leaders of this research as far as I'm concerned. So Dr. Jason Roundtree is the C.S. Mott Professor of Sustainable Agriculture, Director of the Center for Regenerative Agriculture at Michigan State University, and his research focuses on identifying the metrics and management that reflect ecological improvement in grazing land systems. Dr. Roundtree, please, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank y'all. You hear me okay, Seth? Okay. I'm going to start here and let's see here. Before we get going, I'd like to be sure to acknowledge all the people that I've been working with. We've got a large team here, and ultimately just a wonderful group of folks. We've got, I believe, 51 PIs on the main project that I'm working with throughout the U.S. and grazing, from Colorado State to Texas A&M, Noble Research Institute, University of Wyoming. I can go on. The premise that brings us together, I think, on Earth Day is regenerative agriculture. In the U.S. context, we tend to define regenerative ag as the adoption of soil health principles. I always want to say that we want to be led by principle and driven to outcome. A check-the-box practice doesn't work. And every farm is different. Every farm is a fingerprint. And how we manage that contextually, whether in the United States or globally, is very specific to that location. But if we can use these tools in the toolbox, minimizing disruption, always keeping ground covered, perennialization or living roots, biodiversity, getting cattle back in our crop systems, and adaptive grazing, we're going to do much better in terms of our resilience and food security. So I'm going to just share a few things about the farm that I manage here in Lake City. This is a 600-acre spot. We are very temperate, only cool season grasses that we have here. I got here in 2009, and upon that premise, I basically stopped conventional management at this site. We were using fertilizers, considerably doing a lot of hay, very big frame cattle for feed yards. And overnight, through the help of many great consultants that many of you would know throughout the U.S., I just elected to go different. We bought a cow herd that was very moderate, very grass oriented. We quit fertilizing. We quit haying. We tried to graze further into the season. We've done tremendous grass finishing research, and then consequently, we also measured our greenhouse gas emissions at this site, as well as our soil carbon. I think I started in about 2010 or 11 here. Many of you know that we've had a good working relationship with the Savory Institute and others in this context. Just a quick snapshot of our place. I love it. It's a tremendous place to do work in northern Michigan. For your benefit, we're right on the 45th parallel north. And so this is just kind of a quick spot and a quick shot of our place here. So what is managed grazing, right? It's having cattle at a place for a given period of time to accomplish a purpose with proper animal behavior. Quoting the likes of Alan Savory, Jim Howe, Jim Garish, and others. This is a shot of our place so that you can see where we're headed, where we are, and where we've been. And so what we've done is we have transects all over our farm. We have measurement sites all over our farm. There's methane analyzers that are out there. And you can see that we're just trying to manage the land in a way that allows for an adequate rest and adequate recovery. Need to go forward here, guys. And so just a quick thing I want to bring up that we don't hit enough is the type of cow we run in our environment is incredibly important. So as I mentioned, I went from 1,600 pound cow to 1,100 pound cow. Our weaning weights were lower, but we ran more cows in this context. And the thing I want to tell you is, although we weren't getting as much value per calf, we were able to run more cows in our system. And what we learned through accumulating 15 years of data is that for every 100 pounds of cow more, meaning for every 100 pounds of additional weight, the cow only weaned about 7 to 8 more pounds of weaning weight. And then she also, in this context, if I go from 1,600 to 1,150, that cow also ate over 1 ton more feed per year, costing me an additional $200. And so I think no matter if we're in the United States, Africa, or if we're in Australia or wherever, ensuring that we match cattle to our environment and ensuring we get these cows rebred and ensuring that we increase productivity in the farthest numerator may be one of the best ways that we can mitigate challenges with food security and climate by increasing productivity. And so that's just something I wanted to bring out. The other thing that we did, again, is we've been measuring soil carbon over this place from 12 to 16 to 23. Every time I do this, I learn more. Often when we try to get this type of data published, I always get pushback because we didn't do things exactly the same way 14 years ago, if you will. But ultimately, what we found is we actually have sequestered quite a bit of carbon in that context, over 1 ton per hectare annually. We do have some variation in our measurements, and it's provided some challenges in terms of how we publish this information, but the real data does speak to the fact that we've built significant carbon in this system. We've got a paper that's on the verge of being published now where we did actually an 11-year LCA on this data. We measured all of on the left, all of the different performance indicators. We have cattle in the United States that went into feedlots. We grass finished cattle as well. And then in your upper right-hand corner, we also measured carbon. This really dot that I'm pointing to in my top right hand on the soil carbon, that's actually what we measured. You can see that we saw a sharp spike moving up and then beginning to flatline a bit as we go into 2023. We also used a modeling approach to help kind of add more conservativeness, if you will, to our data. So the data that I'm reporting in our LCA is actually a measure approach that I'm seeing of globally more. So even in the most conservative context that we have at Lake City, in our grass finishing system, we dropped our footprint 41% involving soil carbon. We also even dropped a feedlot type of approach 34%. I think if we were to use the raw carbon numbers, we would be very close to breaking even. So the point I want to make is through our management and over time, we've improved productivity. We've increased all the nice metrics of biodiversity, et cetera, and we've also built more carbon, which has dramatically lowered our footprint. So last thing I want to talk about real quick, and I know we're pressed on time, Seth, is the fact that I'm also overseeing a soon to be a $26 million investment on understanding what metrics matter in terms of our rangelands and grasslands in the United States. We call the project metrics management and monitoring. We've got, again, 19 million now. We're closing on another 6 plus. Our sponsors here, Noble Research, Foundation for the Future of Ag, and some other family foundations. And so we're actually actively monitoring on all the sites that you see here in the United States. There will be 59 of them. We also have intensive research sites at Michigan State University. We have it at University of Wyoming, and then we also have it at Noble Research Center, which is going to be kind of down in this Choctaw Nation region. And so we've been polling producers on how they graze, what are the recovery periods. We have intense instrumentation across these sites, eddy covariate flux towers, water sensors, remote sensing, among other things. And so we've been able to accumulate considerable data I'd like to share with you. But really what we're doing, first of all, at our intensive sites is we're comparing what I call an adaptive management approach. You can call it holistic planned grazing, whatever, compared to a prescriptive approach. So we have considerable cows on one side, on the left, increasing stock density, very long recovery periods, versus a prescriptive approach where I let cows mow it to the ground. Whenever there's not enough grass, I pull them out. I put them back in 30 days later. I let them graze it in the ground. I pull them out and I put them back 30 days later. So ultimately, two very different types of approaches. We're seeing huge differences in terms of the responses of these. I don't have enough time to share a lot of that data because actually what I want to talk more about is the data that we're seeing in our Texas and Oklahoma ranches. As I mentioned, I've got eddy covariate flux towers on all these sites. These measure the overall carbon absorption. Generally, anywhere from 10 to 30% of this carbon absorption can be considered soil organic carbon sequestration or added carbon. And so you can see that almost in all the sites that we're measuring, we're seeing over time that these ranches are beginning to take down significant amount of carbon, which I think adds credibility to what we've heard today, that we've got animals grazing in a system that it was created for. These are primarily on native rangelands. Some are improved pasture. But again, you can see that we're even up to 8 tons per hectare on our top sites, but many in the 2 to 6 region over the last few years that we've been managing. And so this is huge when you think about the opportunities of management and how we can begin to uptake more carbon. Some things I want to share with you from Dr. Paige Stanley and Francesca Contrufo at CSU is when we compare our native sites compared to our improved pasture sites, we see more carbon deeper in these rangeland sites. And I think it lends to what the speakers prior had said about getting deeper roots, more secure roots in these systems. It's incredibly important. And it's exciting to see this data. It's very hard to come by all of this data when you're combining all these sites throughout the U.S. This context is Texas and Oklahoma. And what I really want to say then is that when we go and analyze our producers and we compare pasture and range, if producers are moving daily, we see significant greater amounts of evapotranspiration and water at deeper levels in these systems. If we're moving every few weeks, we still see those differences. However, if we're only moving cattle every 1 to 3 months, we actually see our pastures, our improved pastures, bringing down more water, but our native sites are really suffering. So the point then is that we see significantly deeper evapotranspiration where we have more root systems and we have more resilient systems through storing water. And so the take-home truth I'm going to say is this, is that at the end of the day, I think, as I showed with productivity, we still have to be profitable no matter where we are. We have to be able to earn a living to keep supporting our families. This is me on the right. I was just heartened to see that y'all are using EOV in Africa. I actually, 10 years ago almost, I was out in Kenya teaching and working with the Maasai herders on how to do EOV. So it did my heart good to see that going. I truly believe, ladies and gentlemen, globally, that the power of observation will always trump the power of technology. It is about the men and women that are on the earth, that are managing every day globally, studying the land. That's how we make improvement. Technology can help us, but let's not be anywhere confused that observation will trump technology. And I think it's incredibly important. If I could say one thing globally that I've learned through working all over the world is that it is so important to keep our ground covered. And finally, I truly believe that we working together collectively through management can improve the land. Thank you, guys.
Dr. Roundtree, thank you. My heart goes out to you. The work that you and Dr. Winowicki are doing in Africa is just absolutely incredible. This is exactly what we need. Verification of land getting better through appropriate land management practices in which livestock will be an essential part over large parts of the world. We are running up toward the end. People have been asking questions through the Q&A bot and getting answered there. We won't have time for, sort of a larger group discussion, but I would very much love to hear just last minute thoughts from each of the speakers of your own takeaway for regarding this type of webinar and what you see going forward as a possibility. Just real quick. So Dr. Roundtree, the camera is still on you right now. Why don't you just go first?
I just want to honor my global brothers and sisters and what you're doing globally and what we've heard today on Earth Day. Almost brings a little bit of tears to my eyes just seeing all the wonderful work that's going on. Seth, likewise to you, congratulations on such a wonderful event and all the hard work that you've been doing for the over 10 years that I've known you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Winowicki, why don't you go next and unmute?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And I think what I would like to appreciate is bringing together Indigenous pastoralists, global conveners, and scientists and researchers, because I feel like we will only really bend the curve on degradation if we're truly all connecting and talking to each other. And that's why at upcoming UNCCD COP17, we will definitely be trying to bring in the evidence, the data, the youth voices to influence the negotiations. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Lee. And Dinga, why don't you unmute and just offer some last minute thoughts and observations, just real quick.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for participating and for your insight on the issue of pastoralism as a climate, soil and livelihood solution. I'm so happy to see you and I'm so happy to get more insight from you guys. Now we are going to see how we can partner all together and push this effort together, because without soil, nothing will take place. And without pastoralism, we believe also that pastoralism will not be possible. So we believe that when we integrate scientific knowledge with the scientific finding with indigenous knowledge, we can have one solution that can help us. So from that, I'm so happy. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Ndinga. It was an honor to have you. Dalmas, why don't you unmute and just offer some last minute thoughts?
Thank you, everyone, first of all, thank you, Seth, for your leadership in bringing this community of scientists and global leaders in livestock and pastoralism together. I appreciate the fact that the voices of indigenous people are respected in these engagements. And we look forward to working with all the actors to make sure that pastoralism thrives and that communities get to live in this planet. Happy Earth Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dallas. Happy Earth Day to you as well. And Dr. Moyo, why don't we hear from you? Just some closing thoughts. Thank you so much. And you'll need to unmute.
Thank you very much and good evening again. It's really been an exciting 90 minutes together. And for me, the diversity of the topics, the issues that were tabled here today, it just shows how much we're all doing in this space as a family, coming from different perspectives, but all really aiming to see that the pastoralist systems can continue to contribute to produce food. And we know this is happening in usually dry, harsh climatic and variable environments, but they are continuing to produce food. So our contributions collectively will definitely see a better future for pastoralism. Thank you very much again, and have a good evening, everyone.
Dr. Moyo, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to getting back to Kenya. It's my favorite adopted country, and to meet you in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dr. Bess, if you're still with us, we'd love to hear some closing thoughts. You open the forum, and perhaps you can also close it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, colleagues. I think first I wish to congratulate all the speakers for the excellent intervention. And this event, it's an excellent illustration that soil health, rangeland management, and pastoralist livelihood are deeply connected and must be addressed altogether. I think what we heard today is the best illustration of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bess. It's an honor to have you here representing the UN FAO. Just some procedural stuff. This was recorded to the Zoom cloud, and when I get the link, I will just send out the link so everyone, you can just download the whole thing. We can edit parts of it later and put it up on YouTube, but you don't need to wait for that. The entire thing is recorded on the Zoom cloud, so everyone will get that link. And thank you. We're done on time. we're right on time. Who knew? Who knew that was possible, huh? Okay, thank you. I love you all for this, and we'll be in touch. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, Seth.
Bye.
Happy
Thank
Earth
you
Day.
so much, Seth.
Good to meet y'all.
Thank you,
Take care.
everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.